Good afternoon, everyone. Have you ever wondered why some people learn best by doing things and others by watching, some through listening? I think most of us now are already familiar with the different types of learning styles, right? Right. But here's a question to all of us future educators. Do you teach your students the way you were taught? Or do you teach them the way they need to learn? Today, we will be unraveling about the four most common theories, learning theories rather, which are behaviorism, constructivism, cognitivism, and humanism. Now, here's a quick overview of what we will be covering in today's discussion. First, I'll be introducing what learning theories are. Then, my group mates will each discuss one of the four learning theories. Finally, after exploring all four, I'll be leaving you with the key points for each learning theory so that you will remember what each learning theory is all about. Okay? So, what are learning theories? To simply put it, learning theories are frameworks of ideas that attempt to explain how people learn, understand, and retain information. As aspiring teachers, understanding these theories is essential. Why? Because it helps us know why and how our students learn what we teach. It basically acts like lenses. It offers us different perspectives on or about learning. Each theory seeks to answer questions such as how do people learn? What are their motivation for learning? What role do environment, experience, and internal processes play? And after answering all of those questions, we ultimately ask this question as well. How should teaching be structured? So, let's answer all of these questions together as my group mates introduce and explain each of the four learning theories, starting with behaviorism, presented by Mr. Gilly.
Good morning, class. Today's lesson is behaviorism. It's significant learning theory and psychology. Tara, tunghayan natin kung anong meron sa behaviorism. Behaviorism is learning through conditioning. Behaviorism, the central idea is simply yet powerful. Behavior is learned and can be modified. This is emphasized observable behavior, learning through conditioning, and the effects of reinforcement and punishment. Ano nga ba ang meron sa behaviorism? Tara, para makita natin kung anong meron at mga importante para makita natin at maintindihan ang behaviorism at ang behavior ng isang tao. Okay, what is the key principles about behaviorism? We know about the behaviorism, di ba? Okay, goods. First is learning through conditioning. Behavior is learned through classical stimulus association or operant conditioning, which is the rewards and punishment. Later, we can explain about this. So, the second is focus on observable behavior. It's only measurable action are studied, not thoughts or emotion. This focus on observable behavior, alam natin na makikita lang natin sa kung ano yung pag-uugali ng student at di natin mababasa kung ano may yung mga nasa isip nila at kung anong mga nararamdaman nila. In this second is na-measure lang din at nakikita lang natin at na-observe lang ng isang student kung student or teachers at napapag-aralan kung ano yung nagiging actions ng isang tao. Okay, the third is reinforcement and punishment. Reward strengthen behavior while punishment discourage it. And reinforcement, nandiyan ang mga positive and good reward, good behavior. And punishment naman, kumbaga, i-discourage yung mga negative behavior, mga negative thoughts or something na pag-uugali ng isang tao. And the fourth one naman is the environmental shapes behavior. These external factors influence and determine human actions. Okay, we focus about the classroom application. So we can move on about this topic. What is the mga application sa solusang classroom? Kumbaga, sa atin ng mga student, ilang years naman tayo nagiging student mula elementary, high school, and now na college. Kumbaga, na-observe man nato kung ano yung pagkakaiba-iba ng behavior ng isang student, teachers, or someone else man. Okay, the first one is the positive reinforcement. Rewards student to encourage good behavior and learning. This positive reinforcement is important din na pag-reward sa mga student. Kumbaga, bigyan natin ng mga positive outcomes. Kumbaga, pag-reward sa kumbaga nakahimo sa mayad, an activity na tama nila, kumbaga sa solving naman, kumbaga nakatama sila, or very good job. Kung mga sa mga elementary baga, kahit bigyan lang ng stars sa katawan, kumbaga binigyan ng star ng teacher. May pinsan niya ako na reagunan siya. Okay. Mama, sabi sa mama niya, mama, diganan ni stars ko. Kumbaga, na-encourage yung student to continue their good behavior, they good pagiging student nila, at kumbaga na-encourage ito na kung paano sila recite or stand as a student. So the second one is the negative reinforcement. Kung may positive is meron ding negative, which is this removing an excessive stimulus to increase behavior. And negative reinforcement naman, kumbaga ito na pagkontra sa mga bagay-bagay na dire maganda sa sarong student. Okay, we move on about the third, the structured environment. This creating routines and clear expectation for behavior. Okay, the fourth one is the punishment, applying negative consequences to discourage undesirable behavior. In this for the punishment, alam natin na importante ni sa sarong student. As a teacher, kumbaga kung may nahim na negative behavior ang sarong student, bigyan natin sila sa negative, kumbaga punishment, para ito ng mga, kumbaga taga natin apply na negative consequences. Bawa may nagsusuntukan or may nagsusuntukan sa solusang classroom, kumbaga bigyan natin ng consequences, kumbaga mahadok sila na ito na bagay na ito, di rin na nirahimo. Sabihin natin na, sige, magsuntukan ka mo doon, kaya bagsak ka mo. Kaya, yun, importante ang punishment sa solusang classroom. Aramata, maski nga college na kita, di ba? Bihira na lang siguro. Pero sa elementary na ako, inalatak pa ako sa teacher kaya sa tilon na nakakay. Okay, the 5 naman is the direct instruction. Clear and instructed teaching with repetition and practice. And 6 naman is the token economy. This use points or reward to encourage positive behavior. Yun nga topic na kanina, kumbaga tagan sila sa mga points, bawa naka-recite sila, pinaboodwork, solving. Kumbaga mas taga na ito sa points baga or grade. Sige, dagdag grade na yun. Rewards or mga something na bawa baga pag bawa may mga icebreaker lang sa ato. Di ba? Icebreaker. Tapos, pag nangganaan sa na grupo, may reward sila na something na dulce, biscuit, or chocolate. Otherwise, maski na perde man ang sarong grupo, kumbaga meron pa manggihapon san reward. Kumbaga napapaimbod dito good behavior and positive to encourage them. Mapaimbod na sa susunod, pagbutihan ko pa ngayon. Sa sunod talagang magandang ko ngayon. Paganahan ko ngayon kay aram nila, kumbaga na-encourage sila na magpatuloy sila sa positive behavior niya. Because na-encourage sila dahil man dito sa points na ito, may reward nga ang mga eroks ni. And 7 naman, the immediate feedback. As a teacher naman, kumbaga, we need to be active sa pag-observe sa mga student. Halimbawa, sa sulod ng classroom, may nagpapasuruhay, kumbaga, may nagkahimusan mali. Dapat as a teacher, laksian nato, kung mag-active kita, laksian nato ang pag-response nato sa ron nito. Ay, ngayon, mali ngayon yun, tapos i-correct mo. Nanyat na pag-correct mo is applyan mo san pagtokdo. Kumbaga, to learn them. Kung kaya ito na hinimo na akay mali ito. Akay mali ito, mapapaisip sila. Kumbaga, pag i-correct mo sila, i-correct nato sila. Kumbaga, bigyan natin sila ng lesson or maintindihan nila kung bakit ito mali at para din na ulitin. And this is the immediate feedback as a teacher or something na student kita as a mas mature student or something na kay siyempre di ba nag-observe ka. Mas nga sa mga bata, di ba? Pag may naghihiran doon na bata, ang sarang na bata masabi, uy, bad yan, sabi ng teacher. Bawal mag-away-away sa school. We are family in this room. Masabi sa mga student, di ba? Maski nga na elementary, aram yun. Kumbaga, parang irugsag to. Okay, the last in classroom application which is the behavioral contracts. Is create agreements outlining behaviors and their outcomes. Okay, we move about the modeling, shaping, and coding. These types is important about the person to grow their behavior and para makita pa kung paano pa pagsaro na pag-apply sa behavior. And first is the modeling. Students learn by observing others. We know that ang mga students is naglo-learn. Mas nga mga bata, di ba? Alam natin mga bata, kung ano yung na-obserbahan nila sa surrounding, sa family, sa ate, sa mama. Kadamuan sa ito is na-apply nila sa buhay nila. Kumbaga na-imod nila ito at minsan, ay, hindi mo ngayon ito ni ate, hindi mo ito ni papa, himuong ko man niya kay Erikson. Kaya, as a teacher, we should model about the positive behavior. Diba, dito nga ni, sa article nga ni, diba, nasa batas naman na, as a teacher, we need to good teacher. Yun na, bawal magparainom, bawal na para sigarilyo, para sugal. Kasi, kung may imod yun sa saron na student or maaraman man, makita, kumbaga, pwede irugo niya ito sa saron na student. Kasi, maisip na lang, ay, si teacher nga ni, inihimo yan na bagay na yun. Kaya, pwede ko man himuon. Kaya, yun, we need to, as a teacher, we need to be a good teacher, good model sa mga student, and about the positive behavior. Sa mga occasion, di ba, naimod ba natin na may mga inuman, pero occasion, naintindihan man kumbaga acceptable as a teacher, sa mga teacher. Kaya yun, sa modeling. Kahit ako, ikaw, di ba, kung may nakakakita sa ato ng mga tao, we need to be a good and positive behavior. Ma-apply natin sa buhay natin. Okay? May nakaimod na tao, maski kung may nahimo makita or bad behavior, attitude, kumaga, maging ay kaiba man sa tao, kaiba man sila na tao na ini. Okay, we move on about the shaping. Reinforcing excessive approximation of a desired behavior. Halimbawa, ang mga to praise the student, praising student for their step na pag nakahimo sa activity, good job, amazing, you did it sa ini ang activity na hinimo niya. Kumbaga, tagang mo siya sa sayasan, encourage to, kumbaga, praising students sa mga nagawa niya na activity. Parang yun, shaping the, kumbaga, tagan sila sa words or something na message to encourage them, student. Or that, in the third one is the calling, using verbal or non-verbal signal to guide student behavior. Bawa, yun na, pag may mga maribukon sa likod sa classroom, mga student, kahit tagan natin ng signal lang, bawa, yun, quiet nga yan, actually, hand signal, or sino yung mga hand signal lang, or something na may chismisan, hoy, kalmahan lang niyo, or sino, wala may, bawa nagli-lesson sa teacher, baga, pwede may use to guide them para ito ng mga bad behavior is mahali na rin ito. Kumbaga, this is the positive reinforcement man sa mga student. And mas kikita ba manahimo sa mga salian sa surroundings nato. Kumbaga, pagsabihin man nato, maski sa non-verbal na use na ngayon is ini. Okay, the last one is the criticism of behaviorism. Individual are unique and may not all respond the same to stimulus. We know that kita ng mga tao, iba-iba na ato pag-ugali. Iba-iba na ato pinagmulan, iba-iba ang ato pamumuhay. Kaya may mga may uniqueness kita sa ato, sa dire. Kaya, iba-iba man ang behavior nato, iba-iba man ang kung nanaan mayon sa ato buhay, kung paano man kita pamumuhay, kumbaga. Second is the learning differences. So we know that.
Good day, I am Kianashine Iferlahe from Besed English 2A. Now, let's understand about constructivism. It posits that students learn new information by building on top of a foundation of what they've already learned. So constructivism is a learning theory that revolutionizes how we understand knowledge acquisition. Forget the passive sponge model of learning. Constructivism posits that learning is active, constructive process. You may think of it like building a Lego castle. You don't simply have that pre-made bricks. You actively select, arrange, and connect them to create something new and unique. This is precisely how we build knowledge. Jean Piaget and Lev Vygotsky are the key thinkers behind constructivism. Again, it is a learning theory where students build knowledge actively instead of passively receiving it. Piaget focused on how children's thinking develops in stages, showing how they adjust their understanding as they grow. Vygotsky, on the other hand, highlighted the importance of social interaction. He believed that learning happens best when students work with others who know more, getting help to reach their full potential. Both of them showed that learning is not just about observing facts, but about actively building understanding through experience and collaboration. They both argues that learning isn't about passively absorbing information like a sponge. Instead, it's an active process where students build knowledge upon what they already know. It's about constructing understanding. There are principles of constructivism. First, knowledge is constructed rather than innate or possibly absorbed. We aren't born with knowledge. We actively create it through experience and interaction. It's not passively absorbed, but actively built. Second, learning is an active process. Learning isn't a spectator sport. It involves experimentation, questioning, and making connections between new information and pre-existing knowledge. Third, all knowledge is socially constructed. Our understanding of the world is shaped by our interactions with others and our cultural context. Learning is a collaborative process. Fourth, all knowledge is personal. Each individual's understanding is unique, shaped by their experience and perspective. There's no single correct understanding. Fifth, learning exists in the mind. The process of learning involves actively processing and organizing information within our minds to create meaning. And sixth, motivation drives learning. Engagement and curiosity are important for effective learning. When students are motivated, they are more likely to actively construct knowledge. There are three main types of constructivism. First, cognitive constructivism. It focuses on individual cognitive development and how students make sense of new knowledge based on existing understanding. Learners build knowledge based on their existing understanding and experiences. You may think of it like adding new bricks to an existing building. For example, a child who already understands addition easily learns subtraction because it's related. Second, social constructivism. It emphasizes the role of social interactions and cultural influences in knowledge construction. Learning happens through interactions and collaborations with others. It's like building a house together, each person contributing their skills. For example, students working together on a science project, they tend to share ideas and learn from each other. Third, and lastly, radical constructivism. It views knowledge as entirely subjective, created by individuals based on their own experiences. Knowledge is individually created and subjective. It's like each person building their own unique sandcastles on the beach. For instance, students interpreting a historical event based on their own perspectives and research, leading to varied conclusions. There are stages for constructivist teaching. First, inviting ideas. Teacher present a question or situation to engage students' prior knowledge. Second, exploration. Students actively build new knowledge through interactive experiences. Third, proposition. Students discuss their observations and new ideas. Fourth, explanation and solution. Students articulate their thought processes and addresses misconception. Fifth, taking action. Students reflect on learning journey and apply new knowledge. So to understand these stages, I have an example. So let's consider analyzing Shakespeare's Hamlet. Instead of simply lecturing on the plot, a constructivist approach might begin by asking students what they already know about betrayal, revenge, or madness. Then, through group discussions, role-playing, or research into Elizabethan England, students would actively construct their own interpretations of the play, drawing connections between the text and their prior experiences and knowledge. They would debate different interpretations of Hamlet's character, exploring the motivations behind his actions and the complexities of the theme. The final project might involve creating a modern adaptation of the play, demonstrating their understanding of the text and its relevance to contemporary society. There are advantages and disadvantages on constructivist approach. In the advantages, first we have increased student engagement and critical thinking. When you're actively involved in discovering things, building projects, and solving problems, you're naturally more interested and you start thinking more deeply. It's not just about memorizing facts, it's about understanding and applying them. Second, tailored curriculum based on student interest. We can explore topics in ways that connects to your passions and make learning more relevant to your lives. This makes it much easier to stay motivated and learn effectively. Third, enhance social interaction and communication skills. So constructivism often involves group work, discussions, and presentations. This helps you learn how to collaborate, share ideas, and explain your thinking clearly to others. There are also disadvantages in constructivist approach. First, challenge for teachers in larger classrooms. Giving individual attention and support to every student takes time and resources, which can be difficult when you have many students. And second, difficulty in aligning with standardized testing. So this test often focus on memorization and recalling, which isn't the main focus on constructivist teaching. This can create pressure to balance the two approaches, which can be tricky.
Hello, good afternoon. In connection and continuation of the previous discussion about learning theory of constructivism, which is facets that students learn new information by building on top of the foundations of what they already learned. So now my discussion is about cognitivism, which is the learning theory of cognitivism, which is focuses on how the mind receives, organizes, stores, and retrieves information, emphasizing the role of internet, mental process in learning, rather than just observable behavior. So, as you can see, we have here four psychologists, which have a great contribution in cognitivism theory, which is Albert Bandura, George Miller, Jerome Berner, and John Piaget. So next po. So now let's go about cognitivism principle. We have here four: active learning, schema, information processing, and metacognition. So in behalf of active learning, which is active learning is an active process where learning construct knowledge through engagement, reflection, and interactions with their environment. So for example of active learning, a student participates in a math class and reflects on the outcome to understand the concept of algebra. So behalf of active learning, ito yung mga parts na while the teacher is discussing a topic, dapat si students is meron siyang active learning process. Which is, ito yung ginagamit to how students capture a knowledge and gain a knowledge from the teacher. So the next one is schema, which is learning's organized information into existing mental structure called schema. These schemas help them make sense of new informations and relate it to what they already know. So schema, from the word itself, schema, when learnings about, for example, when learnings about photosynthesis, as students connect it to their existing knowledge on how plants need sunlight to grow. Just for example lang naman. So schema, ito yung parts na while si teacher nagtuturo, si student nag-connect siya about the existing knowledge or prior knowledge of the students in connections to what the teacher's discussions. And the next one, which is the cognitivism principle, the information processing, which is views that minds as information processing system or learners receive information, it, information, process it, and store it in their long-term memory. So, information processing, ito naman yung a learners or a teachers use graphic organizers to help students break down and remember the steps of what the discussion flow. For example, in math problem, I given an example of an quadratic equation. So, nag-provide ako ng step-by-step explanation and procedure. Then, ito yung magiging basis ng mga students on how to answer the quadratic equation. Parang nagbibigay ako ng process to capture or to break down some important details para mas maintindihan nila to how the discussions flow or paano malaman yung isang lesson. For example, related to math, kailangan ng step-by-step para mas maintindihan kung paano makuha yung final answer. That's a information process related to cognitism principle. So the next one is metacognition. So the ability to think about one's own thinking. Cognitivists believe that learners who are aware of their own learning process and can regulate their thinking are more effective learners. So dito naman sa metacognitions, for example, a student use checklists or to monitor their understanding while studying and adjust their strategy when they realize they're confused. For example, sa metacognitions related to technology, while the students, di ba, pa nag-study tayo and nag-review, where we are gumagamit tayo ng mga techniques on how we captured and also kung paano mas malaman or para mas maintindihan yung isang topic is gumagamit tayo ng mga techniques like for example Quizlet, index card, susulat doon, then nag-capture tayo ng sarili nating questions, answered questions para mas malaman natin or para mas realize and also to understand the concept. The next po, about the cognitivism process. So, dito na pumapasok yung 4 principle ng cognitivism, which is cognitivism's focus on a various cognitive process, including perceptions, attentions, memory, and thinking. So, the examples ng cognitivism process is that using prior knowledge, engaging in active learning, providing feedback. So, in using prior knowledge, connecting new information to what learners already know. So, yung sabi ko nga kanina, dito yung pumapasok yung schema. Which is sa schema, di ba? Ito yung parang kung ano yung discussion na connects ng students yung existing knowledge nila towards that discussions. Then, engaging in active learning, which is encouraging students to participate in discussions, solve problems, and explore concept. So dito sa engaging in active learning, ito yung kadalasan nakikita natin sa inside the classroom. Kasi it's applications inside the classroom. Engaging in active learning, dito nagiging yung knowledge ng isang student, also a teacher din. Then, provide feedbacks, helping learners understand their strengths and weaknesses and how to improve their learning. So, providing feedback, once kasi na hindi naiintindihan ng students ang discussion ni teachers, kailangan niya or parang hindi niya magbigay ng feedback para mas maintindihan niya kung ano yung nangyari doon. For example, math problem, kung saan nanggaling si Y, kung saan nanggaling si X, para mas ma-provide niya na, doon pala yung galing. Parang walang miss or parang walang shortcut na nangyayari in studying para mas maintindihan ng student yung flow ng discussion. Kasi once hindi maintindihan ni student yung flow ng discussion, hindi niya malalaman kung saan papupunta yung lesson. Parang merong nagiging skip knowledge na nangyayari doon if hindi siya magpo-provide ng feedback. Like kung hindi niya naiintindihan yung topic or may some part na hindi niya naiintindihan. So, importante sa cognition process na meron kang four learning principles or the four principle of cognition, which is kanina, the active learning, schema, information processing, and meta-cognitions. Dito sa providing feedback, dito pumapasok yung, kanina sabi ko yung information processing, meta-cognition. So, dito pumapasok sa una, which is use of prior knowledge, schema. Then, dito naman sa engaging active learning, si active learning. Dito sa providing feedback, dito pumapasok sa information processing and meta-cognition. And connected with the principle. Next po. So, let's go to the classroom application. So, the first one, I given here is 7 classroom application, pero maraming classroom application ang cognitivism theory. Learning theory. So, the first one is the graphic organizer, which is a visual tool like concept maps, flow charts, and Venn diagrams help learning organize information and make connections between ideas. So dito, ang graphic organizer is pumapasok din siya sa principle ni information processing, which is na sinasabi ko nga kanina na gumagamit, for example, ang student or teacher ng graphic organizers para mas maintindihan or ma-breakdown yung mga details na kailangan ma-emphasize or ma-specialize during discussion para mas malaman kung ano ang cycle nun. Then, the next one is the concept mapping, which is ginawa na natin to before, yes, about sa concept mapping of the curriculum, which is a visual representation of a relationship between concept, helping learners see connections and building understanding. So, si concept mapping, pumapasok din siya sa information processing. Doon siya din pumapasok sa information processing, which is na-organize din niya yung mga details kung saan connected itong isang details to another. Then, kung paano bumalik yung isang discussion connected to the first one, parang ganun. Then, the third is the mnemonic strategies, techniques like acronyms, rhymes, and imagery helps learners remember information. So, sa mnemonic strategies, pumapasok din dito yung, actually dalawa, si information processing and si metacognition. Si information processing, siya yung gumagawa ng mga, in-organize yung mga topic. And yung techniques naman, kay metacognition yun. Kumbaga, ito yung ginagamit nila para ma-help si learning to remember the information. Para mas madali niyang ma-review and ma-remember yung mga important informations na kailangan niya during classes or during exams or whatsoever. Then, the next one is self-monitoring techniques. So, strategies that encourage learners to reflect on their learning, assess their understanding, and identify area where they need more support. So, self-monitoring techniques, pumapasok din siya sa active learning. Hindi porket active learning, hindi porket nag-discuss lang si teacher, dapat ikaw makinig, parang ikaw as a part of the student, makikinig ka lang. Sa active learning, dapat si teachers din marunong makinig sa students. Sa self-monitoring techniques, pumapasok dito yung into relationship of student to a teacher relationship. Yes, pumapasok sa self-monitoring techniques. Parang ino-monitor ni teacher yung student, minomonitor ni student si teacher, and also minomonitor ni teacher yung self niya, and si student, minomonitor yung sarili niya. That is strategies that encourage them also for the both of teacher and student. So the next one is the problem-based learning. Engaging students in real-life problem, encourage them to apply their knowledge and develop critical thinking skills. So this methods fosters deeper understanding by allowing learners to explore concept and context. So problem-based learning. Ang problem-based learning, pumapasok ito sa apat. Active learning, schema, information processing, and metacognition. Kasi pag problem-based learning na siya, parang ito na yung mga real-world situation. Kumbaga, dapat kang makinig para matuto, dapat meron kang alam para mas matuto ka pa. Then also information processing, dapat meron kang organized na mga bagay-bagay para mas matuto. Then metacognition, may mga techniques ka para mas madali mong maalala and also para mas madali mong maintindihan yung mga topics. Then the next one is metacognitive strategies, which is the techniques that promote self-reflection and self-regulation, such as goal setting and self-monitoring helps students become more aware of their learning process. So, sa metacognitive strategies, dito pumapasok yung metacognition. Kasi masyado para siyang, it's promote self-reflection and self-regulation. Which is, sabi ko kanina, dito gumagawa yung mga students ng adjustments their strategy when they realize they're confused. Dito pumapasok si metacognitive strategy or the metacognitive principle. Na once ng student is naku-confuse isang bagay, they need to writing a questions, parang searching more about that topic or about that situation na binigay. Then the next one is the scaffolding. So scaffolding, isa rin siya sa mga principle when the child and adolescents learning base. Then teachers provide temporary support to help students master new skills. This support is gradually removed as students become more proficient, encouraging independence and learning. So, sa scaffolding, pumapasok dito yung 4 na principle ni cognitivism. So, the active learning. Pag mag-scaffolding ka, kailangan may active learning ka. Kasi pag wala, ano yung natututunan mo? Then, the schema, dapat kasi talaga meron kang prior knowledge. Then, information processing. Dito naman pumapasok yung on how you acquire, kung how you organize the situation. Then, sa meta naman, metacognition, dito nag-adjust yung strategy mo once na naku-confuse ka sa mga bagay-bagay. So, for example of scaffolding, kasi sa scaffolding, masyadong malawak siya. So, let's have an example. For example, I, as a teacher, I discuss about quadratic equation ulit as a part of example. Quadratic equation, so as part of the student, once nagtuturo ako, dapat meron kang active learning. Kasi pag wala, may iwan ka. Pag wala kang maintindihan. So, sa schema naman, as a part of a teacher, mahilig tayong magtanong ng mga question while hindi pa tayo nag-discuss. Kasi, doon natin malalaman if the students, kung ang students is meron na siyang prior knowledge about sa discussion. Then, sa information processing naman, gagamit tayo ng step by step para mas maintindihan ni student kung saan nanggagaling yung si X, for example, si Y, kung saan sumusulpot yun, and some properties of mathematics, ano mga ginagamit. Then, metacognition, dito pumapasok yung scaffolding na. Kasi hinahayaan natin yung student na maging independent sa pagsagot. For example, tapos na yung discussion ko, magbibigay na ako ng task. Si student, siya yung, dito papasok yung strategy ni student kung paano niyo sasagutan yung giniven ko na task. Siyempre, as a part of a teacher and also a mathematics teacher, hindi parehas ng example. For example, nagbigay ako ng example na ganito. Pagdating ko sa task, mas ibang-iba yon. Iibahin ko yung kung paano yung pagka-arrange, kung paano yung pag-process. Kasi in mathematics and every kind of subject, hindi lahat na binigay na process is yun lang yung susundin mo. Also, kanina nabanggit yung active learning, dapat si student hindi lang about sa pag-memorize ng mga step. Also, marunong din siya mag-analyze ng step. Kasi there's different kind of solution sa kada situation. Kasi hindi lang yan, sa isang solution, isa rin yung process. Merong iba-ibang process, depende kay student kung paano siya magbibigay ng strategy para mas makuha yung tamang sagot. Kasi any kind of process is applicable basta't makuha mo yung tamang sagot. So, doon pumapasok si scaffolding. Then, the next one is the implication cognitivism. So, advantages and disadvantages. So, advantages, focus on mental processes. Ito yung advantages ni cognitivism learning. Focus on mental processes, which is true. Practical applications, emphasize on active learning, increase understanding of learning. So, as a part of advantages, sa advantages kasi, mas mas napofocus niya yung about learning, which is helpful talaga si cognitivism learning theory and the principle within it. Then, the disadvantages, oversimplified of learning, isa rin yun. Then, reductionism, also, difficulty in observing mental processes, limited applicability to real-world learning. Kasi dito nga sa limited applicability, yung sinabi ko kanina, hindi lahat ng process isa lang. Dapat marunong din yung student, kasi learning to, marunong din yung student mag-analyze or given a fact that marunong din silang mag-formulate ng sarili nilang process. Kasi nililimitahan na yung cognitivism kung ano yung mas, kumbaga, mas gamay ng isang tao. Parang, you're just pointing out na ito lang yung gagamitin, hindi ito, hindi ganyan, ito lang, stick with this one, nor disadvantages yon kay cognitivism. And also, in addition to that, every people have a different mental state, ability, and capability. Sa pag-intindi, and also in terms of learning, meron tayong mental state, ability, and capability. Hindi naman lahat parehas ng isip ng iba sa isip ng iba. Meron tayong tinatawag na IQ or the intelligence or the IQ na nasusukat kung ano yung dito, kung ano yung IQ ng isang tao sa IQ. Pero regarding with that, hindi natin pwedeng limitahan yung isang tao na magkaroon ng mas mataas pa compared to the other one. Kaya meron tayong, kaya sasabi nila that learning is continuous and continuous and continuous. So, learning is an infinity in mathematics. Kasi walang katapusan yung pag-aaral niyan para ma-acquire natin na meron tayong sarili nating nasasabing na parang alam na natin yung lahat. So, next po. So, in behalf of my report, so in summary, it's about cognitivism, which is always yung tatandaan na si cognitivism learning theory. It focuses on how it receives, organizes, store, and retrieves information, emphasizing the role of internal mental process and learning rather than just observable behavior. So, yun lang po yung discuss ko. And the next one is Atikat by Humanism.
Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Ako si Kathleen Dizon mula sa BISED Filipino 1A. At ang itatalakay ko ay patungkol sa humanism. Ang humanism ay tungkol sa pagpapahalaga sa tao at sa kanyang kakayahan. Naniniwala sila na ang mga tao ay may karapatang magdesisyon para sa kanilang sarili, mag-isip ng maayos at tumulong sa iba. Gusto nila magkaroon ng isang patas at mabuting mundo para sa lahat. Mayroong 3 tao na kilala sa larangan nito. Ito ay si Carl Rogers, kilala sa kanyang client-centered therapy, na nagbibigay diin sa kahalagahan ng pakikiramay at walang kondisyong pagtanggap. Sumunod ay si Abraham Maslow, nagdevelop ng hierarchy of needs, na nagpapakita ng iba't ibang antas ng pangangailangan ng tao, mula sa pangunahing pangangailangan hanggang sa self-actualization. At ang huli ay si James Bugental, isang kilalang tao sa humanistic psychology na nagbibigay diin sa kahalagahan ng personal na karanasan at ang pagiging natatangi ng bawat individual. Dumako naman tayo sa humanism principles. Una na dito ay ang reason and evidence. Gusto ng mga humanista na gumamit ng lohika at mga katotohanan para magdesisyon, hindi lang basta maniniwala. Ang sunod ay human value. Naniniwala sila na Lahat ng tao ay may halaga at karapat-dapat sa respeto kahit sino pa sila. Ang sunod ay justice and fairness. Gusto nila ng patas na pagtrato para sa lahat. Halimbawa, kung may nakakita ng isang taong hindi patas na tinatrato, may isang taong magtatanggol sa kanya. Ang sunod ay compassion and empathy. Gusto nilang maunawaan ang nararamdaman ng iba at tumulong sa kanila. Halimbawa, kung may nakakita ng isang taong nalulungkot, may magpapakita ng pakikiramay. At ang huli ay ethics and morality. Gusto nilang magkaroon ng mga panuntunan sa pag-uugali na nakatutulong sa lahat. Dumako naman tayo sa historical context. Ang una ay ang classical na humanismo. Ang mga humanista noong panahong ito ay nagbigay diin sa kakayahan ng tao na makamit ang kanyang buong potensyal sa iba't ibang larangan kagaya ng sa sining, agham, panitikan at politika. Halimbawa na dito, yung akda ni Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo at William Shakespeare. Ang pangalawa ay circular na humanismo. Ang mga ideya ng kalayaan, demokrasya at mga karapatang pantao ay naging sentral sa pilosopiyang ito. Ang focus nito ay ang pagpapabuti ng kalagayan ng tao sa mundo sa pamamagitan ng edukasyon, reforma sa lipunan at pagsulong ng agham at teknolohiya. Ang huli ay ang kontemporaryong humanismo. Sa kasalukuyan, ang humanismo ay patuloy na umuunlad at nag-aangkop sa mga bagong hamon at oportunidad. Mayroong iba't ibang mga organisasyon at kilusan na nagtataguyod ng etikal na pamumuhay, katarungan panglipunan at paggalang sa mga karapatang pantao. Ang mga isyong pangkapaligiran, globalisasyon at teknolohiya ay nagiging sentro ng mga talakayan at aksyon ng mga humanista. Sunod ay ang humanism practice. Ang una ay sa edukasyon. Dito, ang humanismo ay nagtataguyod ng edukasyong pagpapaunlad ng kritikal na pag-iisip. Hindi ito basta pag-memorize ng impormasyon, kundi pag-unawa at pagsusuri nito. Halimbawa, ang isang guro ay naghihikayat sa kanyang mga estudyante na magtanong, magdebate at bumuo ng kanilang sariling konklusyon batay sa ebidensya. Ang sunod ay ang social justice. Ang mga humanista ay naniniwala sa pagtataguyod ng mga karapatang pantao, pagkakapantay-pantay at reforma sa lipunan. Naniniwala sila na lahat ng tao ay may pantay na karapatan at dignidad. Halimbawa, isang individual na nagtataguyod ng mga karapatan ng mga marginalized na grupo, isang organisasyon na nagtatrabaho para sa pag-aalis ng kahirapan at kawalan ng katarungan. Ang pangatlo ay arts and culture. Ang humanismo ay nagpapahalaga sa pagkamalikhain at ekspresyon ng tao sa pamamagitan ng sining at kultura. Ito ay isang paraan ng pagpapahayag ng mga ideya, damdamin at karanasan. Halimbawa, isang pintor na nagpapahayag ng kanyang mga pananaw sa pamamagitan ng kanyang mga likha. Isang manunulat na nagsusulat ng mga akdang nagpapatingkad sa karanasan ng tao. At ang panghuli ay personal ethics. Ang humanismo ay nagbibigay gabay sa mga individual tungo sa isang buhay na may kabuluhan at ethical. Ito ay tungkol sa pagbuo ng personal na moralidad batay sa katwiran. Halimbawa ay isang tao na nagsusumikap na mabuhay ng may integridad at katapatan. Ang diagram ay nagpapakita ng pagkakatulad at pagkakaiba ng humanismo at relihiyon. Bagamat may pagkakaiba sila, mayroon din silang pagkakatulad. Sa humanismo, umiiral sa katwiran at karanasan. Ang humanismo ay umiiral sa katwiran, lohika at karanasan ng tao. Hindi ito nakasalalay sa pananampalataya o banal na paghahayag. Binibigyang diin nito ang kalayaan at kakayahan ng tao na mag-isip ng kritikal, magdesisyon para sa sarili at magkaroon ng personal na pag-unlad. Ang layunin nito ay ang pagpapabuti ng buhay ng tao sa mundo sa pamamagitan ng pag-unlad ng etikal na pag-uugali, pagtataguyod ng katarungan, panlipunan at pagpapahalaga sa sining at kultura. Maraming humanismo ang hindi naniniwala sa Diyos o anumang supernatural na kapangyarihan. Halimbawa ay ang isang humanista ang maaring magdesisyon na mag-donate ng pera sa isang kamanggagawa dahil sa kanyang paniniwala sa katarungan, panlipunan at empatya sa mga nangangailangan, hindi dahil sa isang utos ng Diyos. Sa relihiyon naman, ang relihiyon ay umiiral sa pananampalataya, banal na paghahayag at mga banal na kasulatan. Nagbibigay ito ng gabay sa buhay sa pamamagitan ng mga banal na utos, paniniwala at mga ritual. Ang layunin nito ay ang espiritual na paglago at kaligtasan ng kaluluwa. Mayroong mga tiyak na doktrina, paniniwala at tradisyon na dapat sundin ng mga tagasunod. Ang halimbawa ay isang relihiyoso ay maaaring magdesisyon na mag-donate ng pera sa isang kamanggagawa dahil sa kanyang paniniwala sa mga utos ng Diyos at sa kanyang tungkuling tumulong sa mga nangangailangan. Ang kanilang pagkakatulad ay mayroon silang mahalagang pagkakatulad sa gitna ng humanismo at relihiyon, ang pagpapahalaga sa etikal na pag-uugali at komunidad. Pareho silang naniniwala sa kahalagahan ng mabuting pag-uugali, pakikiramay at pagtutulungan sa kapwa. Ang pagkakaiba ay nasa pinagmumula ng kanilang mga paniniwala at ang kanilang paraan ng pag-abot sa mga layuning ito. Ang huli nating itatalakay ay patungkol sa humanism criticism. Ang una ay relativismo. Ang mga kritiko ay nag-aalala na kung walang banal na pinagmulan ng moralidad, ang etika ay magiging subjektibo o subjective na nagbabago depende sa individual o kultura. Walang iisang pamantayan ng tama at mali. Halimbawa, kung ang moralidad ay nakasalalay lamang sa personal na opinyon, paano natin hahatulan ang mga aksyong tulad ng pagpatay, pagnanakaw o panluloko? Sa isang kultura, maaaring tanggap ang isang bagay, ngunit sa ibang kultura, maaaring hindi. Ang pagiging subjektibo ay moralidad ay maaaring magdulot ng pagkalito at kawalan ng pagkakaisa. Ang pangalawa ay kakulangan ng kahulugan. Sinasabi ng mga kritiko na hindi nakapagbigay ng pinakakahulugan o layunin sa buhay ang humanismo patungkol dito. Ang pagtuon lamang sa mga karanasan sa mundo ay hindi sapat para mabigyan ng kahulugan ang pag-iral ng tao. Kung wala tayong paniniwala sa isang Diyos o buhay pagkatapos ng kamatayan, ano ang kahulugan ng ating paghihirap at pagsusumikap sa mundo? Paano natin haharapin ang kamatayan at kawalang katiyakan ng hinaharap? At ang huli ay individualismo. Ang pagbibigay diin sa kalayaan at autonomiya ng individual ay maaaring magdulot ng pagkakahati-hati sa lipunan. Ang pagkawala ng isang pamantayan ng moralidad ay maaaring humantong sa kawalan ng pagkakaisa at pagkasira ng mga ugnayang panlipunan. Halimbawa, kung ang bawat isa ay malaya na gumawa ng anumang gusto nila, nang walang pagsasaalang-alang sa mga epekto sa iba, maaari itong humantong sa kaguluhan at kawalan ng kooperasyon.
Thank you, Ms. Dizon. Now that we've learned about each of the 4 learning theories, let's recap their key points so that we will be able to remember what each learning theory is about. Okay? So first, behaviorism. This tells us that learning is when there is a change of behavior caused by an external stimuli, such as rewards or punishments. For constructivism, it tells us that learners actively build their own understanding based on experience. For cognitivism, it says that learning is a mental process that involves memory, thinking, and problem solving. Lastly, humanism tells us that learning is self-directed and focuses more on personal growth, emotions, and motivation. Now that we've explored behaviorism, constructivism, cognitivism, and humanism, here's something for you to think about. Which learning theory or combinations of those theories do you think is the most useful in managing classrooms of the next generation that we will teach, and why? So that concludes our report. Here is the list of references where we gathered our information. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.